Thessalonians with me, Second Thessalonians in your Bible, and I say this often, get comfortable with your Bible. Get where the Bible is just something you're used to looking at and read it all the time, and make it your friend, make it your companion all the time. Second Thessalonians. Now we're going to read a couple of verses here, and then I'm going to just have you put it on hold while I bring you up to speed to where we're going here in Second Thessalonians chapter 3. But if you'd find that would be a good start. We'll be in Thessalonians a couple of pages earlier in Galatians and end up in Hebrews, 2 Thessalonians, if you'd find that. All right, let's stand together as we read the scriptures. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3. And look, if you would, at verse 13. 2 Thessalonians 3:13. But ye brethren, be not weary in well-doing. Simple statement. But ye brethren, be not weary in well-doing. And as I said this morning, I think it was in my Sunday school class, weariness is a thing in your head and in your heart. Often it's not in your body. That's why a guy can drag out of bed at 4:30 to get to work and bounce out of bed at 3:30 to go fishing. It's a different kind of weariness. It's just different. It's in the head, not in the body. Be not, hold this spot, be not weary in well-doing. Father, bless these moments. Help the evening to be profitable. It's been a good day, a busy day. Thank you for all the rest home services, the jail services, the buses that ran. Thank you for every Sunday school class, every teacher who stood and opened a Bible, and every helper and worker who helped get kids from point A to point B. And there's an awful lot that went on today, and we can, if we get weary, we're going to stop well-doing. I pray you'd help us. In Jesus' name, amen. You can be seated. Keep your Bibles there. We'll be at 1 Thessalonians in a minute. Let me give you a brief introduction. Most of you are familiar with the story of Job. And Job found himself blessed beyond measure. And the day came, and you and I could discuss the why, and why did God allow it, and why did God let the devil do it, and how. But you know what? All we know is what we read. It happened. A good man, a faithful man, a man that God called perfect and upright, one that feared God and eschewed evil, and his world literally came apart. And we're just going to say that's what happened. His livestock was killed or taken, his servants killed, all of his wealth gone, and then his children died. And it wasn't just a problem, it was a problem on top of a problem on top of a problem on top of a problem. And then a window of time passed. We don't know how long. Could have been a few days, could have been a few weeks, no idea. I doubt it was a few hours, but whatever length of time. And again, the devil comes along, and God says, you moved me against Job, and he's still been faithful. What do you think of that guy? And the devil said, flesh for flesh. You let me touch his flesh, he'll curse you now. And God said, you can touch his flesh, but don't take his life. And all that happened to Job, no matter what we think about it, it all happened under the permissive hand of God for a purpose. And none of us like those kind of stories. We think all the bad things are from the devil and all the good things are from God, and they are, because God knows. And God knows what's good, not by your definition, but by his definition. And God had a great plan to do some wonderful things, and for 4,000 years now, people have been blessed by the life of Job. And Job has helped more people with his suffering than any of us ever will help people by not suffering. And his suffering has been a blessing 100 million times. And so there was the loss of livestock, the loss of servants, the loss of wealth, the loss of his 10 children, and then a little while later the loss of his health. He's covered with boils from head to toe and everything. Now that is the attack of the wicked one. Attack after attack after attack after attack. You know the story in Matthew chapter 4. Jesus is being tempted in the wilderness. He fasts 40 days. Now that's enough to about ruin any of us. But after the 40 days, then the devil comes and tempts him. And he says, I'll tell you what, why don't you, you're so hungry, why don't you turn these stones to bread if you're who you say you are? And so a temptation came. And he withstood that. Don't talk, fellas in the back. Unless you're winning a soul in the back, hey, shh, don't talk in the back. Josh, don't talk. Okay, I can't hear if you're talking. Jesus is tempted to turn these stones to bread. And he won't. And the devil doesn't leave him. He comes along and again takes him up to the pinnacle of the temple and says, you know, Psalm 91, if you'll jump off, the angels will bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. Now the devil's quoting Bible verses. Don't think just because the Bible's being used, it's from God. An awful lot of nonsense goes on in the name of the Bible. Let's make sure we know the Word of God, and it's the Word of God. And he says, if you'll jump off, and Jesus says, quotes the Bible back, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. And then he takes him and shows him all the kingdoms. Third time now, the devil takes Jesus and shows him all the kingdoms of the world and says, all these will I give you if you'll just bow down and worship me. Now, obviously, Jesus did not any of those, but the devil shows up in bunches. Anybody can have a flat tire on the way to work. Anybody can get laid off. Anybody can find out they've got hepatitis or something. But when you have a flat tire on the way to work, you get laid off, and you find out you have hepatitis the same day, that's the devil. All right, you okay with that? That didn't happen by chance. That's just a reality. I mean, today there were car accidents all over America. You know there were. And today, my brother up in the mountains in Arizona, he's his pastor. He's not old. I'm guessing, is he my age, you think? Younger? Late 50s. He's a kid. But he, last week, he just showed up all these blotches on his body, and something was wrong. Took him to the doctor. They way up in the mountains above Phoenix, in the area of Prescott and Lakeside, in that area, and they helicoptered him down to a hospital, found he had 0 platelets. And he's been in the hospital. He's supposed to do his own son's wedding the next day. And they said, no, you're not going to do anybody's wedding. You're not leaving this room. You could bleed to death inside. And I don't understand what all platelets are, but I guess they're important. And he's still there. From last Friday, a week ago, to now, still there. They've got no idea. Absolutely no idea. Now, that could happen. A car accident could happen. You know, a liberal could get voted into the White House. That could happen. But to have a liberal in the White House and your platelets all gone and a car accident in the same day, that's the devil. The devil works in bundles. And the reason he works in bundles is because the average person's got enough faith to handle a trial. But when they pile up, and when they pile up, and they pile up, we grow weary. Now that's where we're looking, just for 3 verses and not very long at all tonight. I want to talk to you about the waves of satanic attack. But really the sermon tonight is the assault on living for others. The assault on living for others. Look there, if you would, at 2 Thessalonians 3, where we read just a minute ago. But ye brethren, now he's been talking about work. You ought to work for a living. You ought to work, pay your own bills. He's talking about just basically decent Christian living in the verses before. But right in the middle of all that, in verse 13, he says, but ye brethren, be not weary in well-doing. Be not weary in well-doing. And you know what can happen in our life? We can get busy doing things and living for others and serving others, and you can just get tired. Physically tired, mentally tired, emotionally tired. And he says, I don't want you to get weary. You see, this weariness that gets upon us, and it could be the weariness of struggles in our finances, could be weariness, struggles in our health, weariness of struggles with the world around us. I was talking to someone this last week they got some medical problems, and they're trying to figure out how to just get the doctor to let them do what the doctor says they have to do. One of our men this week was scheduled for surgery on Friday, and they just canceled the surgery. Didn't say why, just canceled. The surgeon canceled it and didn't reschedule it. Those things weigh on you. You know, you go to the hospital and they say, well, we can't treat you. So they send you to a specialist, and he says, well, I'm not sure I can treat you. And no one will treat you. And or the hospital you already have one of our folks is facing this. The medical bills are enormous, and they're just trying to get the insurance company to do what the insurance company is supposed to do. But the insurance company keeps bouncing them from here to there. Well, it's covered here, but it's not covered there. And it's covered here, but it's not covered there. And you think, I'm sick. And we grow weary. We just get weary. Now, the important thing is those last two words, well-doing. Well-doing. Weariness of heart and mind will cause us to stop serving others. Weariness of heart or soul or body can cause us to just throw in the towel on giving ourselves for others. College students, don't forget why you went to college. Don't get so weary with studies and weary with work hours, and don't get so weary with all the pressures of life that you get where you forget what you're there for. You're there to walk with God and discern God's will and what God's will is between you and God. But don't get so weary you get away from God. And don't get so weary that you get away from living for others. Look back just a few pages to the book of Galatians. Galatians, if you would, to chapter 6. Just a few pages before Thessalonians. You know, the guys and ladies with the VA hospital this week, it's an hour drive there, and then however long there doing the services, and then an hour drive back. That's a long day. And we're busy. People commute the long hours to work, and then they come home, they've got household things, and then the few hours we've got left, it's like going to the jails and the rest home. Many people were napping today while folks were in the rest home or at the jails today. And somebody has got to step up and say, you know what, I'm not going to be so weary, I stop well-doing. Well-doing is not an easy thing. The serving of others, the giving of your heart and your soul to others, the giving of your free time to others, passing out tracts and witnessing door to door, singing in the choir, going to choir practice. Well, I'd love to sing in the choir, but I want to go to choir practice. Well, go anyway. We need people in choir. We need people in orchestra. We need people to sing. And teaching a Sunday school class. Just taking time. Knocking on doors on Thursday night or Saturday morning and just going out into the community. Be not weary in well-doing. Now, there are things in this life over here that we all have to do. And sometimes things that come upon us that we didn't wish for, but they're on us. They're a reality, and we carry this load, but we got to be careful we don't let these things get us so weary we stop well-doing. Peter Morris is the best example. I mentioned him, I think, to my Sunday school class, but Peter Morris, a very, very successful businessman in Sydney. He showed me his office, a big, beautiful glass building overlooking downtown Sydney, one of the most expensive office suites in the city. And Keith Piper, some of you have read The Answer book, the great big book. Keith Piper led Peter Morris to Christ and started discipling him and getting him growing in grace. And Peter comes to America and goes to Bible college, meets Melody. They get married, and he's on his way to Kenya when they find out he's got cancer. As an Australian citizen, he goes back to Australia to have the treatment, and he's being treated and treated and treated. And now all of his dreams of going to Kenya, and he's back in the States raising support to go to Kenya, and he's back in Australia taking chemotherapy and the treatments there, and back and forth. And this is, I'm going to say, at least 15 years ago. This all started. The time goes so fast, could be longer. But back and forth. So America raising money, Australia taking the cancer treatment, then into Kenya doing what he's doing there, and the movement. And his heart is in Africa. And so then he'd get over to Africa for a while and hold meetings with pastors and help them start churches. And then he'd get sick and he'd go back over to Australia. And you know what? You could just say, I'm weary. I'm just tired. God says, don't be weary in well-doing. Someone hurt me. Someone let me down. Something went wrong in my life. I'm weary. It's okay to be weary, but don't be weary in well-doing. Look at Galatians 6 down at verse 9. Galatians chapter 6, almost the very same words we just read. Galatians chapter 6. And let us not be weary in well-doing. Now he adds a reason. Let us not, Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. Let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap, if we faint not. As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good to all men, especially to them who are of the household of faith. He said, and he's not just talking about soul winning, he's talking about being good to people. The household of faith, people that are already saved, be good to people, be good to one another. There's hurting people around us, and he says, let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. And so now in Galatians, he says, I want you to just don't let things get you so weary you cease well-doing, because there's a reward day coming. There's a day coming. We're not in this life forever. Can I tell you something? One of our men, I don't think he's here. I don't think he'd mind me saying. I won't say who it was, but one of our men was at the doctor. He's older than me, and that's still very youthful. But he's older, and he's talking to the doctor about his situation. And the doctor said, "Look, I could run all these tests, and I could do this, and this." And he said, "And in the end of all of it, you're going to die anyway." Because we're all dying. He didn't mean right away, but you can either run these tests and you're going to die, you can not run the test, you're going to die. Does it really? I'm thinking that's maybe more candor than I want my doctor to have. But can I tell you something? We're going. All you young people you young ladies that are so beautiful and everything is just perfect, you're going to be wrinkled like a Shar-Pei. You're going to be putting the makeup on with a putty knife. And it's okay. We love you. It's all right. You know, you guys, we're not going to be what we once were. You know, you used to run. I could run forever, not even get tired. Now I can't even sleep through the night. It's just life we're in. But you know what? We're going to die. We're going. We are. We're getting out of here. And so Paul says, look, don't be weary in well-doing. Just the weariness may come, but don't get weary in well-doing. Because in due season we will reap if we faint not. Don't stop serving others. And he goes on to the next verse. In verse 10, as we have therefore opportunity, let us do good to all men. Just be good to people out in the world around you. Be good to people. If you can witness to them, fine. If you can't, be good to people anyway. But especially be good to the people who are of the household of faith. We're going to be together forever. Be good to one another and love one another and be good to each other's children. Be good to each other and care about people and love people. Let us not be weary in well-doing. The harvest field out there is white. Jesus said it's ready to harvest, and we should witness, and we should go to jails, we should go to the hospital, we should go to rest homes, we should go door to door, we should have Sunday school, we should reach out to people. That's what we ought to be doing. Don't be weary with it. And we can. You know, we're going to look at another verse in a minute, but the Bible says regularly, don't be weary, don't get overwhelmed inside. One passage says that lest we be overcharged. Just all these pressures, like you leave the battery on the charger too long and it pops the top off and blows everything out. You can be so pressured that you get overcharged. See what Satan wants to do. Back to Job and the story of Jesus, he's going to pile something on you. He's going to pile something else on you. And you're going to try to stay being faithful, and he's going to pile something else on you. And you're going to try to be faithful, and he's going to pile something else on you. And that's when you need to say, you know what? Remember my favorite Martian? Heathen TV shows for you old people. Your antenna needs to go up and say, this is the devil. Because this and this and this and this could not be a coincidence. That's the devil trying to get me so weary, I stop living for others. It can happen to a church. It can happen to a nation. Certainly can happen to families and individuals. Look over to Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews 12. Again, familiar verses. Many of you could probably quote this if you knew where I was going. Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews and James and Peter. So if you get down to James and Peter, you've gone too far. Hebrews chapter 12. Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed, Hebrews 12, verse 1, wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. Now, there's a race before us. We're to lay aside some things so that we can run the race. Verse 2, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. What are we looking at? What should we be thinking about in our mind as we look to Jesus, who, for the joy that was set before him, look at the words here, he endured the cross. He despised the shame and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him. So just like that word looking into Jesus in verse 2, verse 3, for consider him. Think about him. Consider him that endured such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest ye be, what's that word? Wearied and faint in your mind. And I love that next verse. I don't really love it, but you've not yet resisted unto blood, striving against sin. What are you whining about? You're not bleeding. You ever say that to your kids? You're not bleeding. Quit your crying. Can't say that anymore. You go to jail, you say that to a kid. But anyway, back in the days gone by, you could say that. But what are you crying about? You're not bleeding. He says, you got a race to run. Every one of us got a race to run. How are we going to run that race? We're going to have to lay aside the weights, the sin that so easily beset us. Then we're going to have to keep our eyes on Jesus, looking into Jesus. And then he begins to describe what we're looking at, who for the joy that was set before him. Jesus had the joyful sound, the great days in heaven that were coming. For the joy that was set before him, he endured some things. He despised some things. And you and I may go through some times that I hate going through this. We're supposed to keep our eye on Jesus. Realize all that he endured and all that he had to face. It says he endured the cross. He despised the shame. In verse 3, consider him. Think about him. Think about the people laughing at him. Think about the people pulling his beard out. Think about the people punching him. They put something over his face. They covered him and they punched him. You think about that. And you think about him as he was held up and whipped with a whip and his flesh torn off his body. And he endured such contradiction of sinners against himself in verse 3. Consider him. Consider what Jesus went through. Consider the ugly things thrown at him. If you're really the Son of God, set yourself free. He said he could build the temple, and they just made fun of him, and they mocked him, and they ridiculed him. And he says, consider him, lest ye be weary. You know, the devil's goal is to get us weary, lest ye be weary and faint in your mind. He says there in verse 3, lest ye be wearied and faint in your mind. It's not your physical strength that's in question today. It's your mental. That job, that whatever that pressure is, those pressures, whether they be home or work or wherever, those things that begin to lay on you. Young mothers, man, if you don't pray for our young mothers, you're crazy. You take some girl and she doesn't have any better sense than to marry some guy, and then they have a baby, and then she doesn't sleep, and then she has another baby, and nobody's sleeping, and kids, and food, and diapers, and no sleep, and no rest, and her husband, he just goes to work each day like nothing's going on, and he didn't have a clue. You know what? A girl can get pretty weary. And boy, it'll just wear you out. Wait till you're 60, and you still wouldn't want to have babies. Three quick thoughts. Number one, keep in your Bible more when the battles come. If you are struggling right down in your heart, if you're wrestling, you need to be in your Bible a whole lot more. The Word of God is our strength. It is our shield. And as pressures come on you, you've got to get more Bible. You have to. You talk to anybody in the military, and there's a lifestyle. When they're not anything active, they're prepared. They're always ready. But you put them in a combat situation, they're ready. They're on pins and needles ready. And when we're facing the pressure, especially when you see the devil piling this on and that on and this on, and what the goal is? The goal is to get you or me weary enough that we stop serving God. That is the ultimate goal. I'm just done with God. Oh, the devil won. He won. Now, you may get old enough. I was thinking just not the same as years go by physically. I go slower, and I don't think I work any less hours, but everything goes a little slower than it used to. But you may decide you're not able to do this, but you're going to do this, and you may juggle what ministries or whatever. But look, you can't get so weary you stop serving others. You can't. You can't. God's urging us. He says in Thessalonians, be not weary in well-doing. Then over in Galatians, he says, be not weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. And as you have therefore opportunity, be good to all men, but especially to the household of faith. Be good to people. Be good to people. Don't get so weary. Don't get so weary you walk through the day and you're not good to anybody. Don't get so weary that you go through, that your burdens have weighted you down so much that you become weary and faint in your mind, and you're not able to love people, and you're not able to give to people and care about people, because that is the devil's goal. He doesn't care that you're tired. He cares you quit serving God. That's what he cares about. I was with Brian Stensis and his wife, Mr. and Mrs. Stensis, went to, I want to say Nigeria, but somewhere in Africa, maybe 25 years ago. And they're about the same age, my wife and I, maybe a little younger. And I hadn't seen them since they went to Africa. And wow, Africa ages people. And we've spent quite a bit of time together this week, and his feet are shot, and their health is not good, and he travels, he speaks, he teaches, he's a good man. But you know, the weights and the weights that pile up, you know, the one goal, to keep you from serving God. That's the goal. To keep you from simply reaching in your pocket and saying, hey, here's a gospel tract. Can I just give this to you? It'll help you know how to know for sure you're going to heaven when you die. Just that. But there's something in your head that when you get weary, you stop doing that because you're just tired. Your arm will do it. You could try it. It's not an arm problem. It's a head problem. We get weary. You get weary in your bus route. You get weary visiting that Sunday school class. Number one, you've got to have more Bible. When you are in a battle, you must have more time with God, because God is your strength. Think about the cross. Think about the Savior. Consider him that endured such contradiction of sinners against himself. Number two, you need a lot more time in prayer. And again, some of you are young Christians, and 5 minutes in prayer, you've prayed for everybody in the whole world. You don't know who else to pray for. Then start over and do 6 minutes. But you that are in the battle, you've got to get more time in prayer. You might need prayer lists. You may need to set aside time 3, 4, 5 times a day when you stop to pray, because the weariness will weigh on you, and it'll creep up. And some of you, your work pressure is so heavy, and you cannot let work eat you up, so you're no good to God, because what's the point of working? Number one, lots of Bible. Number two, lots of prayer. And third, you have to guard what gets into your head. Philippians chapter 4, verse 8, I won't have you turn there, but he says, finally, brethren, and he lists 8 things, whatsoever is pure and lovely and just and virtuous. If there be any, it's the wrong order. Anyway, you figure it out. If there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. 8 things to think about. And you need to step back and ask yourself, as conversation comes your way, I don't care if it's radio or TV or, conservative news can depress you. Can you listen to enough conservative think, oh, I think the world's coming to an end. It is, isn't it great? The sooner the better, man. I want out. I'd love to go tonight and just be up in heaven saying, nah, 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 nah. You're in trouble. You ever have your brother get caught being bad and you're just watching? And I'm so glad I'm saved. The world is coming to an end. I'm excited about it. But we've got to look at where we are, and we've got to guard what gets into our head, because critics, religious critics, there are people in this valley who are saved, good people. I cannot spend time with them. I can't, because they're going to discourage me. They're going to discourage me from the things of God. They're going to discourage me from soul winning. They're going to discourage me from a lifestyle separated from this world. They're good people. I wave, they wave, shake hands, see them in the grocery store. But I can't let them get in my head. I can't afford that. You've got to guard what gets in your head. You'll get discouraged about your marriage, about your health. You'll get discouraged about your job, about your finances. We've got to guard. What is it that I'm going to think on? Whatever is pure and true and just and virtuous and lovely. Well, you've got to be careful. We've got to always be on guard. Who is getting in our head? When you're battling a little bit of weariness with your marriage, you better be very careful, because the devil's going to have somebody at work who's also battling with their marriage. And they're going to come along and say, man, I don't know how anybody stays married. And they're going to begin to feed your despair. That's right. You just need to walk away. I'm not hearing that. We don't watch hardly any TV, but when we did watch some, if it was a show where somebody's mocking a wife, done. I'm done. I'm not watching anything making fun of a lady. Not of my wife. I'm not going there. My mind is not for sale. You need to identify whether those thoughts are good thoughts, whether those thoughts are encouraging you. Young people, you're going to college, and some of you are going to be in a dorm room, and your roommates are going to be the devil's. The first temptation is that roommate. The second temptation is that roommate. The third temptation, and you're going to think, I don't know, I can do this. Lots of Bible, lots of prayer, and get out of that room as soon as possible. Guard your friends. I had roommates, I know, a couple of years. I never was in my room. I'd go in late at night after work. I'd go to sleep. I'd get up before anybody else to go read my Bible, and I'd never go back in my room because that room discouraged me. But they loved sleep, and I was okay. I'd get out of that room. I could not afford to let me get that way. Whatever is going to keep me from serving this world, I'm going to avoid it. Period. That's the end of it. Whatever's going to keep me from witnessing, I'm done. Whatever's going to keep me from working in a Sunday school or ministry, whatever's going to get me to keep from going to jails and restrooms, if it is going to hinder me doing the service of others, I'm cutting it off. I cannot let that happen. Go back to our bulletin here and look at that list of young people in Bible college. Think about the young people in our Christian school and the great young people in the community around us. You taught them in Sunday school. Don't be weary in well-doing. You know, a lot of the parents in this room, you sat in a Sunday school class and somebody taught you the Bible and they brought you through whatever grade and whatever grade and whatever grade, and you know what? You could do that too. Let's don't be weary. Let's don't be weary in well-doing. Weary, yes, we're going to be tired. The day's going to come, and some of you, I know you come home from work and you flop down and you think, I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want something to eat and drink and leave me alone. That's going to be on any of us. But don't be so weary you're not doing well. Let's don't be so weary we're not good to people. Let's not be so weary we become critical of the people of God, especially to the household of faith, Paul said to Galatians. Well, if I catch myself being ugly to the people of God, I've got a big issue right here. The critical and the scornful and the bitter. Man, there's a problem. There's a big problem. I am going to love the people of God. I don't want one child of God anywhere that I don't have fondness in my heart toward them. Now, I may not spend a lot of time with them for my own brain's sake because I'm not a good enough Christian, but let's don't be weary in well-doing. All right, let's pray. Father, help us tonight to guard our hearts. We can grow